I'm Colin Christensen here, and I'm with my friend Mark Grizz, 2001 World Series champion and your all-time favorite Chicago Cub. Okay, Mark, so what inspired you as a young athlete?
As a young athlete, my inspiration was because television back when I was a kid, you only had about 3 or 4 channels on TV, so video games weren't very popular at the time, and if they were what few video games were around, they weren't very fun anyway. So the inspiration was the neighborhood boys and some of the girls. We would get together and play. If it was baseball season, we'd get a tennis ball or we'd get a baseball, whatever we could find, and we'd go play baseball out in somebody's yard. And when it was football season, we'd get a football, and okay, you 5 are on this side, you 5 are on that side. When it was basketball season, it was time to find a playground court. So we were, us kids growing up, we were just always outside playing. And if wiffle ball was fun. That was something. Have you ever played wiffle ball?
Yeah,
Wiffle ball is fun. So the inspiration to be an athlete more than anything was, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to do. I can't play the piano, I can't sing, I can't dance, but I could. But as a youngster, me and the neighborhood boys, we were always competing against each other in anything we could, in any sport we could play.
The second question I have here is, who inspired you and why?
Oh man, I think that's a 2-part answer. The first one was my father. My father was my hero. He was the guy that worked really hard in order to be able to pay for my football pad, my shoulder pads, and my cleats, and baseball, and my glove, and you name it. So that my father was one of my biggest heroes, so to speak. But my favorite baseball players were 2. I loved Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez was a St. Louis Cardinal and a New York Met, and he was kind of everything that I wanted to be when I was a teenager. He was a left-handed hitter. He was a very good defensive first baseman. He was a leader, and he was a guy that I would watch him play, and I would say, man, I'd love to be like that guy one day. So there was everything that I wanted to be, he was. And my other favorite was a guy that's in the Hall of Fame. His name's George Brett. George Brett was a great baseball player, and I aspired to be as good as George Brett, but I came up a little short because George Brett was one of the greatest greatest of all time.
The next question I have is, if you had to do it all over again, what would you tell yourself at my age?
How old are you?
14.
You're 14. At 14, I was a lot like I thought I had all the answers. You know what I mean? I thought, man, I'm really good at this stuff. I don't need any help. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. I learned quickly that you probably should listen to your parents, and you probably should listen to your coaches, because you know why? Because they're older than you and they're smarter than you. And I thought I'm smart enough. I'm smarter than these coaches. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm smarter than mom and dad. They don't know what they're talking about. And then I would go out and make dumb mistakes, and then I'd go out and play poorly and not do the things that my coaches and or parents were telling me to do. And I ended up having a couple of really bad years in a row, and then a light bulb went off in my head, and I went, Eureka! These older people, parents, coaches, they know more than me. They're smarter than me. And that's the best advice I can give to all you guys that are 14 years old. Listen to your parents and listen to your coaches.
Lastly, what was one of your proudest moments in your career?
Oh, wow. In 2001 with the Arizona Diamondbacks, we won the World Series. We beat the New York Yankees in a great World Series. It happened right after 9/11, so America was very emotional at the time, and it, and I think 9/11, it didn't just happen in New York, and it didn't just happen in an open field in Pennsylvania. 9/11 happened everywhere in America, and people my age remember it, and it was a horrible situation, but it was also very inspiring. I think Americans came together, but So being a part of that World Series was a great accomplishment. But I think individually, Colin, I got more hits than anybody in the decade of the 1990s. So, and every player that ever did that, from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, every one of those guys is in the Hall of Fame. They're in Cooperstown. So, no, I'm not in the Hall of Fame, but that's a pretty decent feather to have in your cap, don't you think?
Yeah.
So that'd probably be my greatest individual accomplishment.
Thank you, Mark. That's very inspiring to me. Now, Iowa, what inspires you?